So, at first glance, a 2-0 win for England over Albania seems pretty straightforward, right? Just another day at the office. But trust me, this match tells a much bigger, much more complicated story about a team with sky-high ambitions, a historic record on the line, and some serious questions to answer before the World Cup.
Okay, take a look at this table, specifically that last column. I mean, sure, after 8 games, England had scored an impressive 22 goals. But the number that really mattered, the one creating all the tension, it was that big, fat 0 in the goals against column. They had a perfect, absolutely flawless defensive record on the line. And you know, with their spot at the World Cup already locked in, this final match against a tough Albanian side wasn't really about qualifying. Nope, this was about something else entirely. It was about etching their names into the history books.
Can you imagine the pressure? This wasn't just another game on the schedule. This was a high-stakes mission. They were trying to become the first European nation ever to win all their qualifying games without conceding a single goal. History was literally on the line.
So, you'd think they'd come out firing, full of confidence, ready to break a record, right? Well, what we actually saw in the first 45 minutes was the complete opposite. It was a genuine struggle.
Tepid and disjointed. That's how journalists described it, and honestly, that's being kind. The team just looked completely out of sync. You could see it. Passes were going astray, attacks were just fizzling out, and they just couldn't build any momentum against an Albanian team that was clearly up for the fight.
And this number right here, it just puts that feeling into sharp focus. 0.29 expected goals. Now, expected goals, or XG, it's a fancy way of measuring the quality of a team's scoring chances. And this was England's lowest, most ineffective attacking first half of the entire campaign. They were creating, well, basically nothing of value.
So you're probably asking, why? Why were they so off? Well, a big part of the reason was experimentation. The manager made 7 changes from the last match. He handed first starts to promising youngsters Adam Wharton and Jarell Quansah, brought Jude Bellingham back into the fold, and even tried a pretty big tactical switch with John Stones in midfield. With that which changed, the team's chemistry was just gone.
And just how precarious was that perfect record? Get this, goalkeeper Dean Henderson had to make 3 saves. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that is the exact same number of saves he'd had to make in all 7 previous qualifiers combined. Albania wasn't just defending, they actually looked like the bigger threat.
So, with that historic record slipping away and the team looking totally flat, the manager on the sidelines knew he had to do something. He had to act. And act he did. The manager's substitutions, they weren't just about changing players. As he said himself, they were a clear signal of intent. It was a message, not just to his own players, but to the opposition, that England was here for the win and for the record. And wow, was the impact immediate. It was decisive. Bukayo Saka and Marcus Rashford came on, and suddenly the whole game changed. First, Saka's corner gets bundled in by Harry Kane to finally break the deadlock. Then, just 8 minutes later, Rashford whips in a perfect cross for Kane to head home his second. And, just like that, job done.
You know, even the captain, Harry Kane, he highlighted it after the match. His comment really speaks to a key strength of this England side. It's not just about the 11 players who start the game, but it's about the incredible depth of the squad and the ability of those substitutes to be genuine game changers.
So, at the end of the day, England got their win. They got their historic, perfect defensive record. But the unconvincing way they got there, well, it left a lot of people wondering about the team's true form heading into the World Cup.
I mean, if you only look at the final stats, it seems like a comfortable victory. 70% possession, more than double the shots on target. Easy, right? But as we now know, those numbers completely hide the real story of that disjointed and, frankly, dangerous first half.
And one of the biggest questions after the game revolved around star midfielder Jude Bellingham. Pundits felt he looked under pressure, like he was trying way too hard. But the manager's response was much more blunt. He publicly reminded his player that accepting decisions is part of the game and that behavior is key. It was a surprisingly tense public exchange about one of the team's most important players.
But despite the shaky performance and all those lingering questions, the captain, he remains completely confident. Harry Kane is crystal clear. With this level of talent and depth, England just has to embrace the pressure of being a World Cup favorite.
And that really leaves us with the final crucial takeaway. On the one hand, England made history.
They prove they can grind out a win even when they're not playing well, and that's a vital quality for any champion. But on the other hand, this flawed performance raises a pretty critical question. Is this the kind of form that can actually win a World Cup?